This suite is not available to you. Move to the rear cabin. The man looked up from the tablet on his lap. He did not stand. He placed his phone on the polished table beside the window. The screen was already open. N. Crown 7. Principal client. J. Cross. Cabin suite adieu. Verified. A small tone came from the crew tablet in Nadine Voss's hand. The same confirmation appeared there. Green bar. New alert. No restriction. Nadine looked at the screen. Then she turned the tablet toward her chest. That profile is not enough, she said. Outside the oval window, a fuel truck was already connected to the wing. 2 ground crew stood near the hose. One checked a clipboard. One looked toward the cabin door. The aircraft could not close until the principal client dispute cleared. On the leather weekender bag beside the seat, a silver luggage tag shifted when the air vent clicked on. For 1 second. The engraving showed. Crown Line owner transfer. Then, the tag turned flat again. The cabin stayed quiet. Cream leather seats. Dark wood panels. A conference table locked into the floor. A glass partition near the rear suite. The jet smelled of polish, cold air, and coffee grounds from the galley. At Mercer Executive Field, morning light sat low on the tarmac. The sky was pale gray over the hangars. A tug rolled past the nose of the aircraft and stopped near a painted line. Inside the cabin, Nadine kept one hand around the crew tablet. Her name tag sat straight. Her scarf was tied tight. Her thumb rested near the manifest tab. She did not open it. The man in Suite A2 looked from her tablet to the phone on the table. "Please open the manifest," he said. His voice was low, not soft, not raised, just placed there. Nadine's mouth tightened. "I have the cabin assignment. Please open the manifest. The owner suite is restricted." The manifest will show the passenger authority. Nadine looked toward the galley. A junior attendant stood there with 2 bottles of water in one hand and a folded linen in the other. Her name tag read Liora Hayes. She had stopped moving when the crew tablet chimed. Her eyes went to the green bar, then to Nadine's thumb, then to the unopened manifest tab. She did not speak. Nadine stepped closer to Suite A2. The man's phone remained face up. The confirmation screen dimmed by 1 shade, then brightened when the aircraft system refreshed. Verified. The word stayed in the center. Nadine reached for the phone. She did not pick it up. She used the end of a silver pen to slide it back across the table. The phone stopped near his wrist. "Your booking screen does not override cabin procedure." The man looked at the pen, then at the phone, then at her tablet. "Please state the official basis." Nadine inhaled once. The sound was small. The fuel truck outside clicked as the hose settled in its fitting. Near the cockpit door, a light changed from amber to white. The aircraft was moving through its normal checklist. Fuel connected. Weather loaded. Route filed. Passenger authority still unresolved. Nadine tapped the tablet. A note field opened. Her fingers moved quickly. Passenger seated in restricted owner area. Verification unresolved. Liora saw the line from the galley entrance. The manifest tab still had not been opened. The man in Suite A2 watched Nadine finish typing. He did not reach for the tablet. He did not raise his hand. He only said, "That note is not accurate." Nadine locked the screen. The green bar disappeared behind black glass. "Then make it accurate from the rear cabin," she said. She reached toward the leather weekender bag on the seat beside him. Her fingers closed around the handle. The bag lifted 2 inches. The silver tag swung again. Crown Line owner transfer. This time, Liora saw it clearly. So did Nadine. For 1 second, no one moved. Then Nadine pulled the bag into the aisle. The bag moved 1 foot down the aisle. Not far. Far enough. The handle stretched under Nadine's grip. The leather bent near the seam. A brass zipper tapped against the side panel with a small, hard sound. Julian Cross stood. The cabin did not change shape, but the space around Suite A2 seemed smaller. He was taller than Nadine by several inches. Black hoodie, dark jeans, worn gray sneakers. No watch, no ring, no visible security detail. His hands stayed open at his sides. "Put the bag down," he said. Nadine looked at him, then at the bag, then toward the galley, where Liora Hayes had not moved. The bottles in Leora's hand were still sealed. Condensation had gathered under her fingers. One drop slid down the plastic and fell onto the galley mat. Nadine released the handle. The bag hit the cabin floor. A dull sound. Not loud. Recorded clearly. Above the aisle. The cabin camera held a steady blue light. The timestamp on the aircraft security feed read 06:57. Julian looked at the bag on the floor. He did not pick it up yet. He looked back at Nadine. "Please open the manifest." "I already told you," Nadine said. "This area is restricted." "To whom?" Her eyes narrowed. "To authorized clients. My file says verified. It says a booking is verified." The screen said principal client. Nadine did not answer that. She unlocked the tablet again. The note field returned. The first line stayed where she had left it. Passengers seated in restricted owner area. Verification unresolved. Under it, she added another line. Passenger refused relocation instruction. Julian watched her type. The phone on the table was still awake. Its screen had dimmed again. But the confirmation page remained visible. Nadine turned the tablet slightly away from him. Not fully. Just enough. Liora saw the note from the galley. She saw what was missing. No manifest open time. No policy code. No relocation authorization. There was only Nadine's entry. The fuel truck outside, disconnected with a metal click. The ground crew member coiled the hose and looked toward the aircraft stairs. Departure was moving forward. The cabin was not. Julian bent down and picked up his bag by the handle. He placed it back on the empty seat beside him. Carefully. Same angle as before. Silver tag facing down. "Please state the policy code for that relocation," he said. Nadine's thumb hovered above the tablet. "There is no need to quote policy to you. There is if you are making a record." Nadine looked toward the cockpit door. It stayed closed. A faint voice came through the aircraft interphone near the forward panel. Too low to understand. Then a short beep. Liora set the 2 water bottles into the galley slot. One bottle rolled half an inch before the rubber liner stopped it. She reached for the folded linen. Her hand paused. The crew tablet in Nadine's hand gave another small tone. A system prompt appeared. "Principal file available. Open. Manifest." Nadine dismissed it. One tap. The prompt vanished. Julian saw the motion. Liora saw it too. The cabin camera saw the angle of Nadine's thumb. But not the words on the screen. Nadine stepped closer to Suite A2 again. "This can be simple," she said. "Take your belongings to the rear cabin until the captain confirms. Has the captain asked for that? The crew controls the cabin. Please enter that as the basis." Nadine's lips pressed into a straight line. The printer beside the galley woke. A narrow strip of paper came out. Liora tore it off. It was the pre-departure cabin status. 4 lines. Fuel complete. Route loaded. Catering sealed. Principal client pending crew confirmation. Liora read the last line twice. Then she looked at Julian. He was looking at the same strip of paper. Nadine took it from Leora's hand before Liora could fold it. She placed it face down on the galley counter. That was the second small thing. Not thrown. Not hidden. Just turned over. Julian's eyes followed the paper. "Please do not alter the record," he said. Nadine laughed once through her nose. "No warmth. No volume. Records are my job." She tapped the tablet again. A third line appeared. "Passenger challenging crew authority." Liora shifted one step closer to the aisle. Not enough to stand beside Julian. Enough to see the screen. Nadine noticed. "Liora," she said. Liora looked up. "Check the rear cabin. There are no other passengers." "Check it." Liora did not move for 1 second. Then she walked past Suite A2, down the aisle toward the rear. As she passed Julian's seat, her eyes dropped to the phone on the table. The screen refreshed again. Principal client. Julian Cross. Verified. Owner authority active. Liora kept walking. At the rear partition, she stopped. She touched the wall panel. The cabin camera above the conference table blinked once. Nadine stayed in the aisle. Julian remained standing. The false note was now part of the system. Liora returned from the rear cabin. "No passengers in the rear," she said. Nadine did not look at her. "Thank you." The words were flat. Julian remained beside Suite A2. His bag sat where he had placed it. His phone stayed on the table. Screen awake. Confirmation still visible. Nadine held the tablet close to her ribs. "You will sit in the rear until this is resolved." Julian looked toward the closed cockpit door. "I would like to speak with the captain." Nadine's head turned back to him. "The captain is preparing the aircraft. Then please call ground operations and ask them to verify the principal file. I do not need ground operations to manage my cabin." The forward panel beeped again. A short tone, then silence. Outside the window, the fuel truck rolled away. The painted line beneath the aircraft stairs was clear now. A ramp agent lifted one hand toward the cockpit window. Departure was ready on the ground. Inside, one note had already changed the cabin record. Nadine stepped into Suite A2. Julian did not move backward. His headphones were resting on the armrest. Black. Folded. The cable tucked under one side. Nadine reached for them. Julian's hand moved at the same time. Not toward her. Toward the headphones. His fingers closed around one ear cup before hers reached it. Their hands did not lock. The headphones shifted once against the leather. Nadine pulled her hand back. Her body moved half a step away. "You touched me." Julian looked at her hand. Then, at the headphones. "I reached for my property. You put your hands on crew. Please preserve the camera footage." Nadine stared at him. Liora stood at the galley entrance. Her hands were empty now. On the counter behind her, the pre-departure status strip still lay face down. Nadine turned toward the interphone panel. Her steps were fast. Not running. Controlled. She pressed the ground operations button with one finger. A green light appeared beside the switch. "This is Senior Cabin Attendant Voss, on 9th Crown 7. She said. "I need security at the aircraft." A pause. She looked once toward Julian. "Passenger in the owner's suite is refusing relocation instructions. He has become physically aggressive. Crew feels unsafe." Liora's eyes moved to the cabin camera. Then to Julian. Julian picked up his phone. He did it slowly. The screen changed when he touched it. A recording interface filled the display. A red timer was already running. Shiwu. Lingba. Then 15. Lingzhou. Then 15. Sure. He placed the phone face up on the table. The microphone icon pulsed. Nadine saw it. Her hand stayed on the interphone button for 1 second longer than needed. Then she released it. The green light went dark. Julian said, "Please preserve that call." No one answered. The aircraft stairs shifted outside. 2 ground security officers came into view through the window. Dark jackets. Airport badges. One older. One younger. The older officer climbed first. Liora reached for the status strip. She did not turn it over yet. She slid it 3 inches closer to the edge of the counter. The cabin door opened. Cold air entered first. Then the officers. The older officer stepped inside and paused near the galley. His name badge read Marcus Rios. The younger officer stood behind him. Theo March. Nadine moved before either of them asked a question. "Thank you for coming," she said. He forced his way into the restricted suite. I asked him to move several times. He refused. Then he grabbed me when I tried to secure cabin property. Rios looked past Nadine. Julian was standing beside Suite A2. Hands visible. Phone recording. Bag on the seat. Headphones on the armrest. Rios walked down the aisle. "Sir." "Identification." "Please." Julian reached into his wallet and handed over his license. Rios read the name. His face did not change. He looked at the phone on the table, then at the crew tablet in Nadine's hand, then at the tail number printed on the bulkhead plate, N Crown 7. He said into his radio, Ground ops. Confirm principal client and passenger authority. Static. The cabin waited. Liora turned the status strip over. The last line showed again. Principal client pending crew confirmation. The radio answered. Confirmed. Principal client. Julian Cross. Owner authority active. Sole passenger authority on file. Rios lowered the radio. Theo March looked at Nadine. Nadine did not move. The tablet in her hand timed out. The screen went black. Rios did not speak at once. He looked at the black tablet in Nadine's hand, then at the phone on Julian's table, then at the paper strip on the galley counter. Miss Voss, he said. Place the crew tablet on the counter. Nadine's fingers tightened around it. It contains crew operations. I know. She held it for one more second. Then she set it down beside the status strip. The tablet made a soft click against the counter. Rios turned to Liora. Did you witness the cabin contact? Leora's eyes moved to Nadine. Nadine's head turned sharply. Liora, she said. One word. Flat. Hard. The cabin stayed still. Theo March stood near the door with one hand on his radio. He was watching the aisle camera now. The blue light above the cabin remained steady. Liora stepped out from the galley. She did not come all the way to Julian. She stopped beside the conference table. Yes, she said. Rios waited. Liora swallowed once. Her hands were at her sides. I saw the interaction from the galley. Nadine took one step toward her. Do not start inventing. Miss Voss, Rios said. Nadine stopped. Liora looked at the floor for half a second. Then she looked at Rios. Mr. Cross was seated when Miss Voss approached him. His phone showed the aircraft profile. The crew tablet confirmed the same profile. The manifest tab was available. Rios looked at the tablet. Was it opened? No. Nadine's lips parted. Liora continued before Nadine could speak. The system prompted for the principal file. Ms. Voss dismissed the prompt. Julian remained beside Suite A2. He did not look at Nadine. He looked at the paper strip. Liora pointed to it. That printed before security arrived. It says, Principal Client Pending Crew Confirmation. That confirmation was available in the manifest. Rios picked up the paper strip by one corner. He read it. Then he placed it flat on the counter. Not face down. Flat. Continue, he said. Leora's voice steadied. Ms. Voss entered a note saying passenger seated in restricted owner area. Then she added refused relocation instruction. Then challenging crew authority. Rios wrote in a small notebook. Pen on paper. 3 short lines. Nadine's shoulders rose with a breath. She is junior crew. She does not understand escalation language. Liora looked at Nadine. Then back at Rios. The relocation authorization line was blank. The cabin air cycled through the vents. A sound like a long breath. Julian's phone timer passed Atten. Sijar. Rios turned to Julian. Mr. Cross, did you request any physical removal? No. What did you request? Open the manifest. State the official basis. Preserve the call. Issue an incident number. Rios wrote again. Nadine looked toward the cockpit door. At that moment, it opened. Captain Warren Pike stepped into the cabin with his headset around his neck. He looked at the officers, then at Julian, then at Nadine. The briefing took less than a minute. Rios showed him the paper strip. Theo gave the radio confirmation. Liora repeated the skipped manifest step. Captain Pike took the crew tablet from the counter and opened the audit panel with his captain code. The screen changed. A list appeared. Ling Lo. Wuxi Yi. Cabin assignment viewed. Ling Lo. Wuxi Er. Principal profile. Confirmation displayed. Ling Lo. Wuxi Wu. Manifest prompt dismissed. Ling Lo. Wuxi Qi. Passenger relocation note entered. Ling Lo. Wuxi Jiu. Security call initiated. No manifest open entry appeared. Captain Pike read the list once. Then again. He placed the tablet back on the counter. Miss Voss, he said. You are relieved from duty on this flight pending operations review. Nadine's face did not change much. Only her jaw moved. This is excessive. Captain Pike looked at the tablet. No. It is documented. Rios turned to Theo. Start, evidence hold. Theo keyed his radio. Preserve cabin camera. Crew, tablet log. Interphone call. Ground operations. Verification. And terminal access record for N Crown 7. The radio answered with a code. Theo repeated it aloud. Incident number ME, F719. Rios wrote the number and tore the page from his notebook. He handed it to Julian. Julian took it. Thank you. Liora looked at the incident number. Then, at the tablet. Her witness statement was no longer something she was carrying alone. It had entered the record. The replacement attendant arrived in a white airport van. No announcement came over the cabin speaker. No apology was made to the tarmac. Aurelian Air sent one operations supervisor, one reserve crew member, and one sealed evidence sleeve. Captain Pike signed the sleeve first. Rio signed second. Theo March placed the printed cabin status strip inside it. Then the tablet log was exported. The file name appeared on the supervisor's laptop. N Crown 7, cabin log 06510704. Liora Hayes signed a witness preservation form with both hands on the pen. Her signature was small. Readably. Nadine Voss stood near the bottom of the aircraft stairs with her carry-on beside one ankle. She had already surrendered her crew tablet. Her badge had been scanned out under temporary suspension. The scan produced a short red line on the supervisor's screen. Access paused pending operations review. No one said terminated. No one needed to. Achapte. Sashayi. N. Crown 7 taxied from the private stand. Julian Cross sat in Suite A2. The leather weekender bag sat beside him again. The silver tag faced inward now. The coffee on the table cooled without being touched. Liora served water before departure. She placed the glass on a napkin and kept her hand away from the phone that was still recording. Mr. Cross, she said. The incident number is active. Julian looked at the paper Rios had handed him. M.E.F. 719. Thank you. She nodded and returned to the galley. The jet lifted through a low shelf of cloud. The cabin tilted once, then leveled. At cruising altitude, Julian opened a secure contact on his tablet. Amari Chen. Counsel. The call connected in 6 seconds. Julian gave only the sequence. Skipped manifest. False relocation note. Security call. Recorded contact. Ground verification. Witness statement. Incident number. Amari did not interrupt. At the end, he said, "Send the file." Julian sent it. The recording uploaded first. Then the photos. Then the incident number. Then the name from Nadine's badge. 34 minutes later, Aurelian Air Management received a preservation letter. It went to legal. Then compliance. Then the executive office. The subject line was plain. N. Crown 7. Evidence hold and formal notice. The letter required preservation of 5 items. Cabin camera. Crew tablet log. Interphone audio. Ground verification radio. Employee complaint history connected to Nadine Voss. At no. Sure. Conrad Bellamy opened the letter in his Manhattan office. He was CEO of Aurelian Air Management. His desk faced the East River. His coffee sat untouched beside a silver pen. He played the recording once. Then again. At the point where Nadine dismissed the manifest prompt. He paused the video. The screen showed her thumb over the tablet. The prompt was visible for less than 1 second. Enough. He called Julian. The call did not go through. A second later, Amari Chen called back. Mr. Bellamy. Amari said, Mr. Cross will receive written responses only. Conrad looked at the paused frame. What is he asking for? A record correction first. Conrad did not speak. Amari continued. The false relocation note must be locked. Not deleted. The correction must show that the principal manifest was available before contact and was dismissed by crew. Conrad wrote the words down. Locked. Not deleted. Anything else? He asked. Yes. Third-party audit. Full complaint. Review. No internal summary. By noon. HR opened Nadine Voss's employment file. Not the short version. The complete file. 3 complaints appeared in the archive. One from a black client on a charter to Dallas. One from a Latino family on a repositioned cabin flight. One from a young black attorney flying alone from Palm Beach. Each complaint described extra verification. Seat challenges. Tone changes. Property handled without consent. Each closure carried the same note. Insufficient evidence. No further action. Each note carried the same signature. Everett Hale. Client Experience Review. At Doi. Censure. Everett Hale's access badge stopped opening the compliance floor. He tried twice. The reader stayed red. A security guard walked over with a printed instruction. Administrative leave. Effective immediately. No discussion at the gate. No discussion in the lobby. Just a paused credential and a timestamp. By the next morning, Nadine Voss was terminated for documented misconduct, false security reporting, and violation of principal-client protocol. Julian rejected the settlement figure without reading the second page. He requested no complimentary flights, no private apology dinner, no quiet non-disclosure. Aurelian Air received the final demand at 4. Sheest, P.M. Public acknowledgement. Independent civil rights audit. Mandatory training. Witness protection protocol. Complaint closure lock. And the termination of Crownline Infrastructure Group's $12 million fleet management contract. The last line of Amari's letter was not loud. It did not need to be. Crownline does not maintain operational trust with vendors who make accurate records optional. Renee Holt published the story at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. The headline did not use Julian's net worth first. It used the record. The aircraft manifest was correct. The crew report was not. The article opened with the tablet log. Linglo. Ushar. Principal profile confirmation displayed. Linglo. Ushawu. Manifest prompt dismissed. Linglo. Ushitsi. Passenger relocation note entered. Linglo. Ushityo. Security call initiated. Then it named him Julian Cross, founder of Crownline Infrastructure Group, owner of N Crown 7, principal client on the flight file, sole passenger authority on the aircraft that morning. The documents did most of the work. The manifest showed authority. The tablet log showed it had not been opened. The radio call showed the accusation. The cabin video showed the contact. Liora Hayes' statement showed the skipped step in the correct order. By noon, Aurelian Air's public response was online. It did not say misunderstanding. It did not say isolated service concern. It said the company had failed to enforce its own verification procedure. It said the false cabin note had been locked. It said a correction had been attached. Original entry. Passenger seated in restricted owner area. Verification unresolved. Corrected entry. Principal client verification available before crew contact. Manifest prompt, dismissed by crew. No relocation authorization found. Status. Original entry preserved for audit. Correction permanently attached. The correction could not be removed. Only supplemented. That mattered. A deleted lie could become rumor. A locked lie became evidence. 3 days later, the independent audit opened. The auditors did not interview for tone first. They pulled records, complaint closures, tablet logs, crew reassignment notes, security calls, passenger dispute files. Everett Hale's name appeared on the same closure format more than once. By the second week, his access was permanently revoked. His severance file was marked ineligible. Every complaint he had closed in the previous 3 years was reopened. Not all were proven. Not all became cases. But each one received a new line. Prior closure under review due to procedural failure. 3 passengers were contacted. 2 submitted supplemental statements. 1 still had the original email receipt. It had been marked reviewed. No one had opened the attachment. The audit marked that too. Aurelian Air sent correction notices to the passengers whose complaints had been closed under Everett Hale. The letters were short. No slogan. No soft language. Your prior complaint was closed without complete procedural review. That closure has been reopened and corrected in the company record. One passenger mailed back a copy of her original boarding document. Another sent a screenshot of the unanswered follow-up email. Both were added to the audit file. Nadine Voss received formal termination. Then notice of criminal review. The prosecutor filed 2 counts. Assault. False security report. The trial was short. The recording played once. The tablet log was displayed beside it. Liora testified with both hands folded in front of her. She did not add more than she had seen. She stated the screen, the prompt, the note, the contact, the call. The jury returned before lunch. Guilty on both counts. The sentence was entered without ceremony. Probation. Fine. Community service. Permanen. Record. Aurelian Air's internal aviation partner system added a final employment code to Nadine's file. Ineligible for safety-sensitive cabin assignment. False report substantiated. No one clapped. No one needed to. Aurelian Air lost the Crown Line contract the same week the audit summary became public. $12 million a year left the ledger. 2 other clients requested compliance reviews before renewing. One delayed renewal for 90 days. Another required quarterly reporting. The board appointed an outside compliance monitor for 18 months. Every passenger removal report required review. Every discrimination complaint required 2 signatures. Every closed complaint generated an automatic audit trail. No manager could close a file alone. No crew member could dismiss a principal manifest prompt without entering a reason code. No security call could be edited after submission. The system changed quietly. Boxes. Locks. Timestamps. Required fields. Conrad Bellamy resigned 14 months later. The board statement used careful language. Leadership transition. Operational trust. Governance renewal. His office badge stopped working at 5:32 p.m. A guard collected it at the elevator. Liora Hayes received the first copy of the new witness policy. Her name was not in the public version. Her employee file carried 1 protected line. Witness cooperation. No adverse action permitted without compliance review. Julian Cross did not hold a press conference. He signed 1 document in his office. Cross Equity Fund. $10 million. Legal support for service and hospitality discrimination cases. Airlines. Hotels. Restaurants. Retail counters. Places where records were often small and easy to close. In the first year, the fund accepted 85 cases. 12 settled. 4 reached trial. All 4 produced corrected records. That was the part Julian read first in each quarterly report. Not the money. The corrections. 3 months after the incident. N Crown 7 stood again at Mercer Executive Field. The morning was clear. The cabin door was open. Liora Hayes stood inside in a new uniform from the replacement management company. Her badge was new. Her witness protocol training was complete. An investigator from the audit firm stood at the galley counter with a sealed tablet. Liora handed it over with both hands. The screen was not dimmed. It was not turned away. 1 line sat in the middle of the form. Principal client verified. Manifest opened before contact. The investigator signed. Liora signed under him. Julian Cross stepped onto the aircraft with the same leather weekender bag. The silver tag moved once, then settled. Liora scanned the aircraft file. A soft tone sounded. The screen changed from pending to cleared. She returned the ID by hand. The cabin door closed correctly. The system did not become honest by recognizing power. It became harder to lie when the record stayed open. This story is fictional. The characters, events, and settings were created for storytelling, educational, and reflective purposes. Any resemblance to real people or real events is purely coincidental.